25th, 2022 City of Flagstaff Sustainability Commission meeting. And thanks to staff for all the hard work that you do to meet your mission and support our commission. And thank you, commissioners, for the dedication that you put into this group. Item 2 is our roll call. So, commissioners, if you're online, feel free to unmute yourselves. And when I call your name, please indicate that you're here. Chair McCain, present. Vice Chair White, present. Commissioner Steiger,
Present.
Commissioner Bayer.
Fire.
Which do you prefer, Paul?
I'm here.
Which do you prefer?
Fire. It is the least of my worries.
Commissioner Bailey.
Present.
Commissioner Conkle.
Present.
Commissioner McCormick. One of you doing roll call a lot, Commissioner Bayer, so I want to get your name right. All right, I'd like to read our land acknowledgement. The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home. Our next item is public comment. At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject within their jurisdiction that is not scheduled before the commission on that day. Due to open meeting laws, the commission cannot discuss or act on items presented during this portion of the agenda. To address the commission on an item that is on the agenda, please use the Teams chat function. Simply type in public comment to indicate to the chair that you would like to comment. The chair will then recognize you when it is time for public comment, and staff will unmute your microphone if needed. Do we have any public comment? Okay, it doesn't look like it. So let's move to item 5, which is the approval of minutes. All right, hopefully, commissioners, you had a chance to look those over. Does anybody have any feedback? All right, well, I had a chance to look them over, and I love looking at minutes, and I haven't looked at them since for a while. So I noticed as I look back into past agendas, past minutes, starting in April, our selected presentations were listed on the minutes, which I think is an awesome idea. And given that change and the importance of people reading our agenda to know that those presentations are included, I'd like our minutes taker, and is she here or?
I'm taking minutes.
You're taking them, okay. So Marissa, if you could make a note, I'd like to add references to the agenda on the item that has an attachment attached to the minutes, minutes.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So I just want to reference in the minutes, we can go through it and it'll be more clear. So for example, if we go to page 2.
April?
I'm sorry, last month.
Okay.
So if we go to item 2, or page 2, business item 6A, I would love there just to be an insertion because Tamara's plan was attached to the minutes.
Yep.
So it'd be great to just say, see PowerPoint, presentation, and appendix.
Okay.
So I think there were a few of those. So the first one was on page 2. The second one was on page 3, item B, recommendations for commission action to support the carbon neutrality plan. And then the next one was page 5, item D, bond committee update. And then the last one was page 6, letter F. And yeah, I think it's awesome that they're in there, so it just tells people they're there since that's a new thing. I'm going to get another correction on page 4, paragraph 4, line 8. The way it reads is Chair McCain stated that it is countercultural, and I'd like that to be amended to delete it is where it says it is counterculture is the language.
So it should read it as counterculture.
Yeah, it reads it is counterculture. I think that should be stricken, the it is counterculture part. And instead it should read the concept is countercultural. Okay, so any other comments on the minutes?
I guess just the minor thing, I thought it was made me chuckle when you said that I commented on the futility of rain barrels. I thought, shouldn't that be utility? No, well, not maybe this futility. So, it just made me giggle. Leave it alone.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that the minutes are supposed to just be the bare minimum of key actions that are taken and highlighted. So, great.
Great, any other comments, or would someone like to forward a motion on the
Move to
minutes?
approve.
All right,
As amended.
Commissioner Byer moves to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Vice Chair White seconds, so we have a motion from Commissioner Byer to approve the minutes for June 23rd, a second from Vice Chair White. Is there any discussion? Okay, great. I'd like to bring this to a vote. So again, Commissioner Byer made the motion to approve the June 23rd minutes. Chair White seconded. So please unmute yourself, Commissioner Daly. And all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. All right, motion passes. So is Commissioner McCormick online also? Did I hear her there?
She hopped on.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry for being late. Was in the field today, just getting back.
Okay, thanks for joining us. All right, so that brings us to business item 6A, the carbon neutrality plan update. So Jenny Neiman, glad to see you. Take it away.
It looks like you lost her. Hold on, let me send her a chat really quick.
Who's Jenny?
She just lost service. Hold on, stand by. Is our next item food recovery, perhaps? Let's see if perhaps we can switch those.
Sure, is Casey Aberley on the call?
Hi, yes, I'm here and available.
All right, yeah, Casey, why don't I move to you, the food recovery pilot program. Go ahead.
Perfect, thank you so much. I would love to share my screen as well if I am able to figure that out.
There should be a share screen button right next to your microphone at the top of the screen.
Perfect, let me see here. Sorry, it's having some issues with the settings on my computer. Give me just a sec.
Casey, I'm also happy to share my screen with your presentation if you just want to present.
Oh, would you do that? That would be amazing. I'm just
No
trying
problem.
to figure out the sharing, like recording settings on my computer are all messed up. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Let me just make sure I can open up your presentation.
Yeah, if you could do that, that would be great, Kaylee. Thank you.
Of course. All right, can you all see this okay?
Good.
Yes.
Okay, great. Casey, whenever you're ready, just tell me when you want me to change the slides.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, first of all, thank you all for taking a little bit of time to let me talk to you about a project that I've been working on with the Sustainability Committee, and specifically with Kaylee. I've been working on this project for about the past 3 months, and I just wanted to, start off by giving everyone a little bit of an introduction into who I am and how it all got started. You want to start that next one? Perfect. Yeah. So I was born and raised in Flagstaff, and then I decided that I wanted to go somewhere else for school. So I went to Western Washington University, and I ended up graduating with a degree in environmental policy in March. And throughout my time in college, I just ended up really being passionate about waste reduction and sharing knowledge around food waste and how we can reduce it. So I actually first got involved with the Food Recovery Network. If anyone is familiar, it's a national program. And basically, I would collect food from different locations around campus, and then I would deliver that to a lighthouse mission locally. And so this was a really great way for me to start getting involved and seeing what kind of food waste was happening. And then I ended up finding a new organization that even increased my interests even more. If you want to go on to that next slide, Kaylee. Perfect. So after I had started getting interested in this in college, the pandemic came along in 2020, as we all know, and suddenly there wasn't any food anymore to recover from all of these markets because everything was pretty shut down on campus. And so I wanted to find a new branch for us to go on as a club. And I ended up running into Sustainable Connections in Bellingham, Washington. They are a nonprofit organization, and they're focused solely on business development and community development done in a sustainable manner. The food recovery program is just one branch of many of the different programs that they have, and they have that within their Towards Zero Waste department. So during my time with them, I worked as an intern. Initially, I found them because I was with the club, and I thought, well, how can we still contribute to the community? So I ended up finding them and realizing they were already doing a lot of that food work, and we were able to connect and start volunteering. So the food recovery program, in a very basic sense, is when volunteers from the community go in and pick up food in their personal vehicles. It might be 40 pounds of food or 150 pounds of food, just depending on what the place has that day. And then they deliver it to different local donation agencies. And that can totally vary just depending on the day and what's needed and all of that. And so that is basically the premise of it. And it's found a huge success being run by this nonprofit in Bellingham. In 2020, they had 200,000 meals provided and 255,000 pounds of food saved. I'm personally very familiar with Brandy Hutton, who started the program, and it's amazing how self-sustaining it really is, and the number of volunteers they've gotten involved with local food, restaurant, and business recoveries. All right, you can go to the next slide. Awesome. Yeah. So sorry, this is kind of a lot of words thrown at you, but I'm happy to just go over this with you and kind of talk about how important it is that we think about food waste in the first place, right? It's really quite striking to really uncover how much of a impact it has in our overall waste stream. So food waste is estimated at between 30 to 40% of the food supply. And just to give you an extra little add-on on top of that, 40% is estimated to happen within the restaurant industry. And so that's really a pretty big chunk of food waste that we're seeing when restaurants are either providing a lot of food that's getting thrown away, or they just aren't getting through the food that they do have. Food takes up more space in US landfills than anything else, making up 22% of municipal solid waste. Just big numbers. It's crazy to try and think about how much food takes up space. The US discards more food than any other country in the world. And obviously, this is just kind of common knowledge that wasting food has these irreversible environmental consequences. We're wasting a ton of energy and water in the production of food, and that's really part of the loss when we see food waste. All right, you can keep going. Perfect. Yeah. So here's our mission statement, something that I developed. Our mission is to reduce community-wide food waste through volunteer-based transportation of excess food from local businesses, restaurants, and schools to recipient agencies across Flagstaff. And one note that I want to make about this as I clarify our mission is that there are some awesome donors and people already within the community, such as the food bank, that are doing a lot of these recoveries. However, these food runs are mostly currently with chain grocery stores and restaurants, and a lot of them they're having sent to them. So this is really an opportunity for these local businesses and restaurants to have a solo volunteer come and pick up maybe 40 pounds of food that day and just make sure that it isn't getting thrown in the trash can at night, right? It's just a little bit of a different mission than what we currently have going on, which seems to be awesome. So, all right, next slide. Perfect. So basically, when I came to Kaylee with this idea, we kind of found each other and we're talking about it as I was thinking about coming back to Flagstaff, and she said, I would love to see more of this. So I said, how can I develop a framework around this program, right? And what I wanted to do is outline my methods and objectives, and that was how I just approached every single I think asset or part of what would go into creating a program like this. So you could go to the next slide. All right, awesome. So my first objective was to just identify potential food recipients. I talked to a lot of people about this, and I was like, I'm not really sure where to start, but really it made the most sense, right? We're looking at where the demand is and what we would really want to be seeing. We know that it's there, but what is it for, right? And so I did a ton of online research and found all of the potential recipients that I felt were in the area, did a lot of reaching out, and made connections with all of the listed recipients and have clarifications on what they would need, when they'd like it, best contacts, all of that. Obviously, there's no shortage of need in the community. It's just about figuring out where we would want certain waste to go. And so that was a big part. I went on to tour both the Flagstaff Family Food Center and the pantry, and was able to make good connections with them and talk to them about what would be helpful for them moving forward if we were to start a program up like this. Perfect. You could move on to the next slide. Awesome. So my second objective was to look on the other end of that, and that was potential food donors. So super similar process, but I would say that my biggest hurdle in this entire building of the framework was just trying to get communication to restaurants through emails, which I 100% understand. It was another issue that we had in Bellingham, and I get it. Everybody's, they're doing a million other things. But I also felt bad calling because I was often not reaching the manager. So what my conclusion is ultimately was that in-person recruitment would really be an ideal way to walk in with a flyer and talk to them about what's going on and what kind of interests they might have. But anyway, regardless of that, still identified 2 potential donors that have interest in hearing about this program starting up, and already have ideas going on about where this food would go and brainstorming ways that the logistics would be taken care of. So there's a couple of really exciting options there, and I think that will only grow as we continue to get the word out. Perfect. You can move on to the next slide. All right, so for my third objective, it was volunteer management and encouragement. This is all pretty straightforward, but it's also really great to just get it outlined and get it out there. Ways that we can encourage volunteers, ways that Sustainable Connections in Bellingham has already shown volunteers that they care, right? Keeping everybody on board and feeling like they're working within a team. And so I prepared information on all of this. And then I also looked into potential management softwares that would really limit staff time needed to manage something like this. Sustainable Connections has gotten their program to the point that Brandy, the main leader, is able to look it over and not spend more than maybe a couple hours every day managing that. So it's great to look into stuff like that, and that was part of what I prepared for the framework. All right, next slide. Awesome. So the next objective was food handling and distribution protocols. Every health department and county and area, you know, everybody's different in just in little ways. So I went ahead and contacted the health department, and then also did a lot of online research, as well as looking into current similar programs that are national, such as the Food Recovery Network, and looking into ways that they both regulate and provide resources for the best food handling protocols, right? And so I wanted to make sure to include both the required things that we know we should absolutely be doing, as well as the things that like really are our best practices. And so I put that all into a nice and tidy sheet, and I think that that's something that should absolutely be reviewed for volunteers if they're to start up with the program. All right, next slide. Perfect. So objective 5 was just food tracking methods. This is something that Sustainable Connections in Bellingham uses, and it's something that would be great to use here. Of course, there are tons of reasons for having records of food that you've collected, including for grant reports, promoting participating businesses, letting the public know. You know, I was able to throw out those those numbers at you earlier for Sustainable Connections. It's great to have that circulating around. So I wanted to look into ways that we can do food tracking, and really I just modeled it off of Sustainable Connections. And in addition to that, I created a sample recovery report. So that would basically look like a Google form at the moment, but it could be done through any platform, where a volunteer goes in and enters details about the food that they're collecting, such as the type and the weight. And then that goes on to a bigger database, and that information just continues to be stored. And so I was really describing just how that could be done by a volunteer, and then as well as how that report could be made. All right, next slide. Perfect. This slide is super straightforward. I just looked into all of the supplies that we might need and came up with a budget for it, right? So I looked into soft-sided coolers, gloves, reusable containers, scales, and name tags. Scales are for weighing the food, but even just a bathroom scale will work. Gloves, you know, disposable versus reusable, same thing for containers. So just kind of looking into different options and different price ranges, and then creating a budget, an unfinished budget, with that element involved, as well as looking at the gas reimbursement for volunteers as an element. So just kind of trying to get some numbers going for what we would be looking at budget-wise. All right, next slide. Awesome. So lastly, I did some research on funding and grant opportunities. I looked into all types of grants that I could find online at all different levels of government. And then I also did a little bit of brainstorming on fundraising efforts. I can pull up here the grants that I looked into, included the Arizona Recycling Coalition, Keep America Beautiful, and the Arizona Community Foundation. And they all got back to me and were talking to me about kind of my project and are interested to hear more. So I'm excited about it. All right, next slide. Sweet, yeah. So I just kind of want to wrap it up with what's next. Now that we've kind of gone in and established this framework for the program, we'd really love to see it get into action as soon as it can. We're seeking funding for initial supplies, and we're trying to figure out where that's going to come from to support the program. We would love to be able to maintain, in the beginning, our goal is to have a weekly or bi-weekly volunteer recovery process that's run between one donor and one recipient, and then to build up from there. I think that would be a really great approach, especially since we're already talking to a couple. And then, yeah, I hope that we can work with these partners that I've chatted with so far and really help it grow. And yeah, we would just love to help the community prosper and see where we can pick up some extra food that's getting wasted. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Casey. Do you want any feedback or any
Yeah,
thoughts?
I would love questions. Questions, please.
Hey.
And feedback.
Great, Commissioner White has a
Thanks.
question.
Yeah, thanks for this. This sounds like a really awesome project. I two questions. One, have you contacted or do you know about Flagstaff liminal space, and have you asked them about being another potential food recipient?
Sorry, could you say that name one more time? I just barely couldn't catch it.
Oh, sorry, Flagstaff liminal space.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't actually heard about this yet.
So that they might, they're another organization that might be able to help you distribute food.
Perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Don't right, I don't right now.
Okay.
They were one of our grant recipients. Yeah, thanks.
I didn't know if you knew someone personally, but yeah, we have the general contact. Okay, great.
Thanks. Second question, are you picturing like any particular ways that the Sustainability Commission can help you with your mission?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that I'm just doing my best to get the word out and kind of promote the importance of what I'm working with. And in any way that you can talk about it, or I don't know, if you know a restaurant owner and you're willing to bug them about it, just like ways we can start, getting the conversation flowing is one of the biggest things. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Kunkel?
Sure. Another organization you might want to connect with is Louis Covered on the NAU campus.
Okay.
It's for NAU students, faculty, and staff.
Okay, great.
And then I don't know if I missed it, what your relationship is with the sustainability office, but we're doing our neighborhood sustainability grants for up to $5,000. And so that might be an opportunity for you to submit a grant proposal, unless you're working with sustainability office.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. The other thing I was thinking, you mentioned a kind of a document to review around food handling for your volunteers. It might be worth it to think about having volunteers complete the food handler certificate. I think it's like $15 or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah, when I talked to Elizabeth with the health department, she said that would be something that they would absolutely recommend, but that they understood if at the beginning it was a little bit more difficult to get everyone registered right away. But given that it would be especially helpful if we could cover a portion of that, I think, for any new coming volunteers.
Great. Commissioner Steiger had a question?
Yeah, absolutely. So just piggybacking off what Commissioner Kunkel suggested, Louis Covered at NAU is absolutely a good resource. They also have a supplemental program, I believe, called Louis Leftovers that does something very similar like this, where different events on campus will blast out alerts to folks that sign up for it saying, there's food here, come get it, basically.
Yeah.
Essentially partnering with them, or also maybe just having a conversation with them about what their process looks like that you might be able to replicate in a similar way outside of the university in the Flagstaff.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, one other location agency that you might want to consider giving food to is called Kinlani Mutual Aid.
Okay.
And I'll send the contact information to Nicole around that. They're a native run entity, and I don't know if they're even working now, but they were really active during COVID.
Thank you.
Do you have that contact information, Nicole, or should I send it to you?
That would be great if you could send it, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. I so appreciate all of that information. Yeah, it would be great to hear more about Louis' leftovers and what they have going on over there.
And what is your timeline with going forward, Casey?
So this is actually the end of my road. I am headed off to Europe at the beginning of this upcoming month, and so I'm wrapping up my portion of involvement, at least for the next, or at least the end of the year. But I have enjoyed the 3 months. I think I started in June or July, and it's been great. So I'm just hoping that we can find a way to find an individual or multiple individuals who are also passionate about keeping this going and getting it started now that a lot of the base work has been done in getting it going.
So just to chime in, we had Casey do like the initial research and like the development of the framework for us. And now the sustainability office will look for like funding sources and figure out a plan for moving forward. Maybe this looks like, well, it's going to look like applying for grants, maybe applying for permanent funding, and then perhaps like an AmeriCorps member. So we're super excited with the initial framework that Casey created, and now we have to figure out a way of implementing it.
Okay, just so I understand, I guess I was under the impression that it was a program of sustainable connections, but this is a program of the sustainability section is going to be administering and doing the program. Is that accurate?
Yeah, my apologies. I didn't clarify that very well at the beginning. So Sustainable Connections is in Bellingham, and it absolutely is what the program is inspired off of. Once I graduated and my involvement there ceased, then I was excited to talk to Kaylee. We found this commonality, and she said, why don't you come and work on developing a framework that we could use in the sustainability committee to then create this program here in Flagstaff. So essentially what I'm doing is modeling it off of that based on the familiarity I have with it in Bellingham so far.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for doing that. Any other questions? I think Commissioner Conkle has one.
Yeah, one quick thing, Kaylee, the public health program at NAU, you may or may not be familiar, is launching a big AmeriCorps internship program starting this fall, but with a larger cohort of AmeriCorps members for the spring. And let me know if you want me to connect you with Ali Stender or if you have already talked to her.
Yeah, I actually submitted like a Google form for it, and I'm waiting to hear back from them.
Perfect.
All right, any other questions for Casey? All right, thank you so much. Have a great week. Where are you going in Europe?
A bunch of places, but Italy's first.
Awesome.
So
Enjoy.
I'm excited. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all of your time.
All right, is Jenny with us?
I am. Hi, folks. I am so sorry about before. I'm down at a conference in the Valley on planning and not the best internet connection, but we should be good to go. All right, so I am going to pull up my PowerPoint if I can just get confirmation when y'all see it.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. So I am here to talk about revising the carbon neutrality plan. And I'm going to go into sort of a broad overview of what we're doing. First, I'll start with why, and then I will start with what. And I will be back in September. So this is sort of the intro to that conversation to sort of guide y'all through why we're here. And then in September, we'll talk a bit more. Please feel free to stop me if ever you need to. So we are revising the carbon neutrality plan. We did just adopt the carbon neutrality plan 14 months ago. So a lot of folks, like the question might be, why revise so soon? Well, we only have 8 years to get to carbon neutrality. And when you are working on such a rapid goal, you can't check in every 5 years, right? Or even every 2 years, right? We need to be checking in every single year on our progress, where we are, where we're going, what we need to adjust, etc. So that commitment to annual revisions was in our implementation plan. So we did knowingly do this. And, right now we are 14 months post adoption. We are not going to kind of open it up and say, hey, what did you love about that, transportation policy, right? Or that building electrification policy. We don't know just yet how our policies are working in some ways, right? And what more we need. So we're not going to do a ton of substantive revisions. What we are going to do is administrative reasons. And there's plenty of reasons actually to revise the carbon neutrality plan already from an administrative standpoint. So the first type, we're going to have 3 types of revisions in fall 2022. The first type is revisions due to new information. So we have new information about financial investment needed for the carbon neutrality plan. We have a new housing plan for the city of Flagstaff. And we also have partner commitments, and I'm going to go into each of those. We're also going to do standard annual revisions. These are revisions we anticipate doing every year. So first, we update our greenhouse gas emissions inventory every year. It's just like you look at your annual budget every year, right? As an organization, our greenhouse gas inventory is our accounting of our emissions, which is how the Flagstaff community is contributing to climate change. So we will do that every single year. We will also look at our projections. So what are our emissions going forward? What do we see happening going forward, and kind of check that against our goals. So we'll do that every year. We'll also do minor edits and typos, things that you just get to find in the plan as soon as you pass it. So those will be very small administrative things. And then finally, we are going to do some plan consolidation. And this is what I'll spend the bulk of my time on tonight, but we are going to essentially combine the 2018 Climate Action Adaptation Plan and the carbon neutrality plan that was passed in 2021. And the focus of that will be resilience. And I'll explain why that's really the key there. But there's kind of a gap between our 2 documents. And so we're just going to catch them both up together. And this will lead to a lot of simplicity. So in terms of new information, that was that first category that I talked about. Flagstaff has a 10-year housing plan. This is deeply exciting. City Council adopted this some 9 months ago, and housing is deeply connected to climate change. We will see climate change have really impactful influences on our housing. We're going to see a lot more visitation, right? The valley is only getting hotter, right? A lot more people will come up here to escape that heat. We also will start to see more climate migration from across the country. Flagstaff is sort of, because of its elevation, even though we have great climate vulnerabilities, particularly related to fire and more forests, we also are, in terms of heat, right, a relatively kind of stable place to be. And so we'll see that not only from other parts of Arizona, but the West and the nation. Housing is also deeply connected to climate action. And so the solutions to climate action, many of them are embedded in our housing, in both our new housing and our existing housing. And so we're really excited about this because the solutions to our housing crisis and the solutions to our climate crisis, many of them are the same. Right? They involve thinking differently about the land in our community, right? Thinking differently about density, thinking differently about connections among neighbors, et cetera. But those all kind of go together. And so what we're going to do with the housing plan is we're actually going to incorporate its overall goals and strategies into the climate plan and just bring it in as a way to kind of make sure that those connections are really solid and that those plans are really going in lockstep together. Another type of new information we have is commitments from our partners. We didn't have these just 14 months ago, and so it's pretty incredible to see Flagstaff's regional partners step up. Northern Arizona has committed to carbon neutrality. President Cruz Rivera came out with a commitment, I believe in late May, that they will achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. They will match the city's goals, and President Cruz Rivera says they will beat us. So we will have great competition for that in getting there. So we're really excited. We are working with NAU to begin implementation of that commitment. Coconino County is also going to be setting climate goals. They have committed to developing a greenhouse gas inventory to measure their emissions, as well as a climate action and adaptation plan. That work is in its early foundational stages, but it's deeply important for helping us achieve our goals and also helping us be in lockstep with each other. Finally, FUSD also just, I believe, 2 months ago, maybe less, committed to establish establishing climate goals, they are going to establish a greenhouse gas reduction target by December 2022. So this is new information. It will impact our trajectory, right, in terms of achieving carbon neutrality. Next, total community investment needed. So this is information that we presented to council in May of 2022, so about 3 months ago. And this, we got analysis from an outside consultant on the total projected cost to get to carbon neutrality. This is a very big number, but I want to pause. And, you know, our city has very big numbers, right? We deal in big numbers in terms of investment needed in our community. And so, when you think about it, you know, we have had large infrastructure projects in our community that are $100 million. And so $600 million is large. A lot of things overlap though, right? So this is also our transportation infrastructure, right? This is flooding infrastructure, et cetera. All right. Next, so I alluded to this. Yes.
The question, could you go back to the last slide, just say a little bit more about how, could you define the net benefit a little bit? Exactly what is that?
Sure. So the net benefit is really the benefit minus cost. And so when we have a 600 million essentially projected cost of implementation of the carbon neutrality plan, that means the benefit that we see is about $622 million, right? And so that net benefit, that overarching benefit, we will benefit by $22 million in our benefits by doing that. The benefits come from the general benefits of climate action, right? So folks will save money on their electricity bills. The city will save money on energy, cleaner air quality, right? There's health benefits, et cetera. So it's kind of a big overarching number because the strategies are really diverse. Is that helpful though?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's just, I think quantifying that, making that understandable, not just a number, seems valuable.
And if I may add to, just in terms of the total projected cost, that's for the community plan. That is not suggesting that the city of Flagstaff is on the hook for 600 million or FUSD or NAU. This is bringing this plan for carbon neutrality to the Flagstaff community.
Is there a fraction that you expect the city to fund?
Absolutely. But as well, and I'll let Jenny get through the rest of her presentation, but yes, there are things that obviously the city is the actor.
Right. Yeah, do you have that quantified or is that coming later?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, y'all. So I alluded to annual calculations that we do, and these will become part of our annual updates to the carbon neutrality plan. So the first is the greenhouse gas inventory. Right here, there's this slide essentially shows our emissions. They show them and how they have grown from 2016, 2018, 2019, and 2020. We are working right now to quantify our 2021 greenhouse gas emissions. We do this every summer with help from NAU interns and or student consultants. And so that is in progress right now, but that's part of it. And so every year as we update the carbon neutrality plan, we will add in our inventory, right? Which just says, this is where we are. This is the progress that we have made. Our greenhouse gas emissions have grown every year that we have been tracking them, as have pretty much every community that you look at. We need to start bend that curve back at some point, right? And ideally soon. And so, but it does take a while, right? The carbon neutrality plan does not reduce emissions all by itself, right? Just with the passage of that plan. It's the policy that has to follow that leads to those emissions reductions. And so we are hoping that 2021 will start to see emissions. We also are updating our methodology for calculating emissions. So we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that in September. Once we update that inventory, then we track it against our reduction goals. And so right here, this is sort of what we call the wedge diagram. So these are our business as usual emissions, this black line up top. And then how we have reduced those emissions is quantified here. And then we get to zero. So the only goal is really zero, right? And it's about how we get there. And so what we will do when we update the carbon neutrality plan is we will take our emissions and we will track that against our emissions goal. We're not going to be at zero in 2022. We may increase our emissions by 2022, right? As we wait for policies to really take effect. But that will be another part of what we will do in this update, as well as every single update moving forward over the next 8 years of carbon neutrality plan implementation. All right, the final type of edits that we're going to do, this one is a little bit more complicated, but it is really about combining the climate action adaptation plan and the carbon neutrality plan. And the key here is resilience. I'm going to take a moment to just review resilience because I think it's helpful for us all to get on the same page about what that term means. We kind of use the terms resilience and adaptation interchangeably, but we define resilience, and we define resilience using the definition from the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. Resilience is the ability to anticipate, accommodate, and positively adapt to or thrive amidst changing climate conditions while enhancing the quality of life, reliable systems, economic vitality, and conservation of resources. The key here is that we're not just bouncing back, right? And we're not just preparing, but we're actually trying to make life better for folks in this community, right? We're trying to help folks thrive even amidst change and even amidst pressures. So when we think about resilience, a very quick background, these are the main sort of Flagstaff specific effects of climate change that we think about. We can add to this list really extremes in weather. We also think about vulnerabilities, and we think about what is at risk. So what parts of our systems have vulnerabilities and have risk that we need to think about, both in context of what climate change will do to those risks and how we adapt. And then the third principle we think about is just equity. Everyone in our community faces different threats. Everyone in our community also has different ability to respond to threats, right? Different ability to adapt, maybe based on the language you speak or your income or the neighborhood you live in. So that's just the quick refresher on resilience. Another refresher on timeline. We have 2 climate plans in our community. The first one was the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. We adopted it in 2018. That plan was focused on resilience and emissions reduction. Right before we adopted that plan, about the month before, in October 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, came out with a report and said we need to move much more quickly than we said we would in the Paris Agreement. There's new science about the great sort of catastrophic loss in both plant and animal and human life that will come if we do not move more quickly. And so we still adopted the climate plan, and then we said we need to talk to the community. Well, the community came to talk to us. They started a petition for a climate emergency. About 9 months later, Council declared a climate emergency in June 2020. That led to the development of the carbon neutrality plan. The carbon neutrality plan focused solely on rapid emissions reduction. We had about 12 months, almost to the day, to develop it without a lot of consultant report. And we said, you know what, we are going to focus solely on reducing emissions really quickly. And so what you see is the CAP was about emissions reduction and adaptation. The carbon neutrality plan was just about emissions reduction. And we said, we're going to come back later and incorporate what was in the 2018 plan into the carbon neutrality plan. And that's what's happening now. And so what we have is in the CAP, the resilience target areas, there's 4 of them. So it's natural environment, which really talks about forests and fires and open space. There's water resources, there's economic prosperity and recreation, and then there's public health services, facilities, and safety. Those are sort of what we call the resilience chapters. And the carbon neutrality plan, again, just focusing on rapid emissions, right? We did energy, transportation, and waste, but then we did electrification, carbon dioxide removal, equitable systems, and we mentioned community resilience, and we mentioned we're going to come back and we need to incorporate the concepts from the CAP. What we're going to do now is we're going to take those 4 chapters and we're going to place them into the carbon neutrality plan. So it's really just a combination of those documents and pulling in those resilience chapters. Right now, this is our honeycomb. We do talk about community resilience. These are our target areas. Community resilience is one of those, but it's quite broad. And it says, again, we need to pull in those chapters from the CAP. And so what we're doing now is we're actually moving towards a new and a larger honeycomb, where the ones in red here, housing, water resources, natural environment, health and safety, those are the ones we've talked about tonight. So housing is a bit different because that's wholly new, but what we're doing is we're really just going to take from the housing plan. So Yeah, that's it. We are combining documents, adding new information, and doing our updates about emissions and our projections. So we will have more to share with the commission in September, but I would love to stop here for any discussion or any questions y'all have for me.
Yeah, Commissioner White.
Thanks, and this looks amazing, and it's really logical to combine all the plans. It's really good to see that the city is starting to integrate a lot of the approaches, because that's gonna be that's gonna be really important in dealing with the things we have to deal with. One question that strikes me as important, and maybe you could expound on it, when we're doing the yearly updates for how the plan is doing, a pretty big chunk of what we're expecting, of the way we're expecting to get to climate neutrality is through carbon removal. And so I'm wondering, one, could you just, like, have we decided yet, like, what methods of carbon removal we're planning on using? And two, when we're talking about the yearly updates, does that include audits of, and what kind of audits of how effective the carbon removal is actually being?
Yeah, I'm gonna, Nicole is a lot closer to our CDR efforts, and so I'm gonna let her take at least the first part.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for asking that question. So carbon dioxide removal is a approach, and as you know, it's more than 50% of our toolbox for achieving carbon neutrality. And this is a area that is growing quickly in terms of technology. It's advancing. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of investment revolving around this, and it's moving quickly. That said, it's not necessarily something that we have our fingers dipped in right now, because we're trying to identify what is the best mechanism for carbon dioxide removal. And so we have been working very closely with Boulder County, Colorado, and we have created the Four Corners Carbon Dioxide Removal Coalition.
Oh, cool.
And we have launched a solicitation for interest, letters of interest. We are focusing specifically right now on the concrete industry for sequestration of carbon. And so right now we are waiting for that solicitation, letters of interest or intent, if you will, to close. And then we're going to release a solicitation that actually is associated with funding. We have $50,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot for our budget. Boulder County has a much deeper pocket because they are able to use revenues from marijuana sales to fight climate action. And so they have about $150,000 to $200,000 to put into the pot. And then we are hoping our friends in Albuquerque will also be interested partners in this coalition. And then our friends in Utah, be it Salt Lake City or Park City, maybe not with financial contributions, but what we're really trying to do with this coalition is spark industry interest, private sector investment, and government leadership. And so you're hitting the nail on the head on the value and the importance of this. We also want to make sure that we've got equity incorporated into this discussion, environmental justice. The last thing we want carbon dioxide removal to do is to create yet more disparities and inequities throughout our communities. So that is why we are focusing on the concrete sector, also because concrete manufacturing is pretty much in every larger community. So we have one here, we've got a couple in Flagstaff. So our hope is that they submit to the solicitation, and we can actually help to really spark investment, private interest, and we all kind of come together because this meets so many mutual needs and goals. So more to come. Hopefully by November, we will have some exciting updates for the commission and the city council in the CDR world. But we're really trying hard to get attention focused on CDR and get ahead, if you will, of opportunities. So if we have this coalition moving, we're really hoping that we can pull in additional funding because it's solid. We've got commitments from 4 states, not at the state level, but communities within those states. We've got interest in a certain sector, in this particular case, concrete. And we're really hoping that we can attract some big funding. The idea behind it is very similar to what's called a power purchase agreement or carbon credit offsetting. We know because it's a coalition that it may result in a project in New Mexico. So it will be a regional carbon capture, but again, we're really trying to create and start investment and strategy around this and hopefully create something that's scalable for other communities too. So thank you for asking that question.
I would love to just connect the dot. I'm not really aware of CDR. What's the connection between concrete and CDR?
So carbon can be stored in concrete.
Okay,
So it is basically a permanent storage mechanism.
I see.
Yeah. Without a lot of technology needs. It's actually pretty straightforward.
Kind of analog.
Yeah, I mean, very, you know, we've got great resources throughout the state. Our friends down at ASU, you know, have been working with mechanical trees and extracting carbon through mechanical trees, but there's no defined use of the product yet coming out of the mechanical tree. Right, so concrete is a no-brainer in that space of like, this is permanent storage. So we're really trying to kind of the low-hanging fruit, if you will.
Thanks very much, and that does sound like really cool technology.
Yeah.
So, but if I could ask just for another couple seconds of the other half of the question, so is there, what?
What was the other half?
Oh, so is there, so in the process of like getting, doing like yearly updates and reviews of how effective the cap is being, are we also planning on, I mean, I would recommend that we do, but are there plans in place right now to have regular audits of how effective whichever carbon capture method we end up using is actually being?
Yeah. Sure, Commissioner White, thanks. It's a great question. And frankly, we're not there yet because we don't know what our CDR is going to look like. But I think that is perfectly aligned with the intention of these annual check-ins, right? It's to say, are our policies working, right? And along with that is our carbon dioxide removal working, right? With whatever we end up going with. And if I can provide some background for the commission, the world of offsets can be tricky sometimes, right? And really thinking about what's a valid offset and are you really actually offsetting your emissions, et cetera, et cetera. And so there are really similar concerns about the world of carbon dioxide removal. And so Commissioner White, that is why we are trying to essentially do this ourselves, do this with known partners, do this regionally, right? And so that is behind it, but I think it's perfectly in line with the intention and the spirit of these annual updates to check in on our policies, whether they are electric building policies, right, or CDR policies. So I do imagine that an annual essentially audit will be incorporated into this, yes.
Great, thank you very much.
Of course, thank you.
Great, any other questions for Jenny? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Maybe a couple comments. One emerging issue is that, and it's kind of an ironic compounding of climate change. Flagstaff, I've been here 30 years, and 3 years ago was the first summer I wished I had air conditioning.
Yeah.
And this year's been great. You know, it's just a scary thing. So I anticipate that, and I don't know what that means, but good luck.
Commissioner Beyer.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing more and more new homes be built with air conditioning, et cetera. And so sometimes that can be called, you know, a maladaptation, right? Where we're adapting, but we're creating many more emissions. There are benefits to building electrification. So if you're on a heat pump, your home is coming with air conditioner. That is good. Right? It's good from a health safety perspective. It also means, you know, might someone just start to run their air conditioner on a, 78-degree day where they never would have needed to before. So we absolutely need to think about that. And it's a great point.
And I guess just one other thing, I've been very encouraged at the level of public support, but I think we need to be concerned about maintaining that as some of these costs come into being. And so I'm thinking of just, it's very effective sometimes when agencies have tables at community events, and even at the end of a long distance race, and there, people are hanging out. So there are many venues, and then rather than put it all on you, you to do that, you know, we do have the Northern Arizona Climate Change Alliance, Citizens Climate Lobby, folks who would probably love to man those staff those tables, and just sustain that interest. So when people have questions and they think, oh, I'm getting concerned, here's somebody who can talk to me. So maybe think in the long term about how you're going to maintain the fabulous level of support we have right now.
Absolutely.
Are you volunteering to help us?
Yeah. Actually, I probably would be. I'd be one of many who would attend 2 or 3 events per year.
All right, any more questions for Jenny? Go ahead.
Got one here, Chair McCain.
Yeah, go ahead.
So thanks, Chair McCain. Jenny, are you envisioning that I guess the building electrification incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act will change the slope of some of the building electrification gains we might see?
Yes. So the building electrification components of the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed or adopted into law 2 weeks ago are actually deeply similar to the rebate program that we're running right now. And so what we're going to have to figure out is, where do we fit in, right? And where do those incentives fit in? They absolutely will change the curve. It's actually, we were joking internally, the wedge graph that I showed before about our emissions, like that was on the front page of the papers, right? For the country's wedge graph, essentially, and how we've reduced that term. So that will affect our ability to do work, right? We will focus less then on building electrification, probably because those rebates will be built in and they're quite significant, right? If you make under 150% of the area average median income. So we will try to work around them probably, and perhaps we'll supplement them. We're not exactly sure because we don't know exactly how those will be administered, and I believe through the state, but they're going to shift the whole curve down, right? And so they will also change what our curve looks like. Did that answer the question?
That does. Thank you. And I guess kind of a soapbox. Like, I think the thing about direct air capture is it allows us the illusion that we don't have to make any changes on our own. Read a fairly alarming Daily Sun questionnaire on all the city council and mayoral candidates about climate, and there were a lot of responses that seemed, taking aside the ones that were just aggressively ignorant, there were some responses that seemed to have just bypassed mitigation entirely, and we've just moved on to adaptation. We're not going to do anything. So I think kind of that mentality, coupled with it's too hard to change how we think about transportation in this town, or too hard to do infill because people complain. I'm not sure how to address that, but it's concerning. So.
Commissioner Daly, I will just say I appreciate the conversation. We talk about a lot, the moral hazard of carbon dioxide removal, right? We can't do anything, so let's just remove it all. And we are committed to ensuring, right, that we're doing both at once. But I also will say yes to the broader community conversation, because not in the political arena, we hear this a lot, right? We hear, well, it's too hard to reduce vehicle miles traveled. Let's just go with electric vehicles, right? It will not be enough. And so I guess I would just ask the commission to continue considering those questions, because we need your help, and we certainly need your help when it comes to the community conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say, are you good, Mr. Daly? Have any more?
No, that's it. That's all I've got. Thank you.
And for me, thinking really, really broadly, I guess I'm, just concerned about the idea of green capitalism. Personally, I think it is leading us in the wrong direction, and that we need to think about degrowth and really looking at ways to slow things down instead of, with creating new concrete so we can continue building the way that we've been building. So I'm part of the conversation. I know we don't have the power in Flagstaff, Arizona necessarily to slow things down in a way that would really, really support our climate neutrality plan. And I think internationally and nationally, that's what we need to do. So that's just another part of the conversation that I'll throw out. And I'm actively, working with our ex-chair of the commission on ways to do that. And so yeah, just want to throw that in the conversation. Anything else? All right, thank you, Jenny.
Thanks,
So,
folks.
on to item 6C, Neighborhood Sustainability Grant Event Working Group. Commissioner Conkle, go ahead.
Thanks. So Commissioner McCormick and Steiger.
Yeah.
Tiger like tiger.
Yeah.
Tiger.
And I met a few weeks back to talk about the recognition event that the commission decided on hopefully moving forward with, starting with the next grant cycle. So the first event won't even be until 2024. But to put together a proposal so that we could include the relevant information for potential grant awardees from here on out. And so in the past, we've had awardees at the end of the project come and present to the commission, I think during a commission meeting. And it just wasn't as meaningful as we would like it to be. And so the idea of the recognition event is that we could bring everyone together in more of a celebratory type of environment, not during a regularly scheduled commission meeting time, and allow for networking and conversation and idea building between groups. Also, feel free to jump in, both of you, if there's anything that I am missing. The event itself, we are not married to the date and time on here. It's kind of just an idea of when it might be a good time for a recognition event, but the grants are 1 year long, and so it would have to be in the spring following the end of the grant cycle. So we suggest having it be something like the second Thursday of a month, potentially February, so that it's not too many meetings in a row for us. And to host it at a community center such as the Murdoch Center or the Joe Montoya Center in town with a reservation fee of about $150 or less. And the awardees would be asked to prepare very little, not a lot in advance, so that it didn't seem overwhelming or nerve-wracking for them. We would ask them to prepare a single PowerPoint slide that featured maybe photos of their project and a 2 or 3 sentence caption and their project title and the names of folks that were involved. And then also prepare a 3 to 5 minute elevator speech about their project. So nothing else formal other than that one presentation slide and a quick rundown of what the project was and how it went. And they would be welcome to bring posters or handouts or hard copies of anything they would like to share with others, but it would not be required. And the event would be set up, it's called or modeled after the World Cafe type of events, where groups would be essentially paired together to have small roundtable discussions about their projects, and each table would be moderated by a commissioner. We would do 2 rotations of that during the event. So everybody wouldn't get to hear presentations or chat with every single person during the World Cafe, but it would be partnered so that we could feature tables that had groups that with similar types of health issues or interests or whatever they were doing, so they kind of put like people alike so that they could network in that way and maybe build new connections for future community projects. The format of the event then, we'd have the PowerPoint slides just kind of on rotation on a big projector screen in the community center so that no one would be expected to stand and present a slide, but everybody would be able to see the photos and read a little bit about it. And at any point, if somebody was like, oh my gosh, can you pause that? And we could take a look during one of the World Cafe events, it would be really flexible. But everyone's would just be kind of featured on rotation for the full duration. And then we'd have a kind of an entry time to let folks gather, about 20 minutes. The Sustainability Commission Chair could provide a welcome speech and instructions for the World Cafe Roundtable event. So between 5 and 5:30, those things would happen. And then 5:30 to 6:30 would be 2 iterations of the roundtable presentations. Like I said, moderated by a commission member. So you would get to work with 2 different groups of 3 or so awardees. And important to know that we want to make sure to include community members and others that might be interested in attending, and they can kind of pick and choose which tables they'd want to sit and discuss at, right? So the event would be open to others, and we would want to encourage the folks that were presenting to invite people that might be interested in learning more about their projects. And then at the end, for the last hour, we thought it'd be nice to have more of a casual celebratory refreshments and networking, where we would encourage everyone to stay and chit chat, and we could all talk to other folks that maybe weren't at our tables if we were so inclined. Let's see. I have more information on the worksheet. Oh, I guess we didn't put up there. I printed out this if anyone wants to.
Do you want me to put it on the screen?
I can share it. It doesn't matter. You can attach it to the minutes too. But I had some.
I'd like to see it on the screen.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So Commissioner Daly can see it.
Yeah, sure. But we, have an event budget breakdown of, making sure to have money to reserve event space, open to, this is in spring of 2024, so there might be some opportunity to get an event space donated in kind for the event. But if not, about $150 set aside for reserving event space. Money for compostable cups, plates, cutlery, or we would also invite guests to bring their own reusable cup. And a small amount of money for non-alcoholic beverages, light appetizers for the end. Sustainability staff would be responsible for typically what they would have been responsible for the presentations, right? So outreach to the grant awardees, making sure to get the single PowerPoint slide, putting together that presentation for the event itself. And then the commission would be responsible for actually the execution of the event, right? So setting up the tables in the way that we want them to be set up, providing, purchasing the food and setting up, food and refreshments, and so forth. We are excited to hear your feedback and open to ideas and suggestions, but would like to probably get at least a little blurb on the out to potential awardees so that they would know what would be requested of them for the final presentation for the projects.
Great, yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner Conkle and working group members. Thanks so much for putting this forward. Are there any questions or comments, commissioners?
Just that this all sounds really well thought out.
I had one comment in terms of reducing the budget. Friends of Flagstaff's Future has a zero waste program where they have cups and stuff like that they will allow you to use for like a donation.
Oh, great, great.
So I'll send that to Nicole, the link for that.
I'll also add our office has reusable plates that we use citywide, so this would be free.
Oh, that'd be great.
Great.
Mhm.
Yeah, great.
Super. I think at one point we were talking about what fraction of our actual budget for the entire grants this was. I don't know if that is something, I thought at some point we talked to Nicole about getting maybe it was for the Albert thing, I forget. Was it for this too? I thought we had a dialogue about what percentage of those $50,000 funds would be appropriate to use for this and how.
We talked about $500.
$500.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
super. All right, any other comments? I guess we want to need a motion.
I think it'll be fun. I love roundtable discussion events.
Sounds great. So Marissa, do we need a motion on this?
If this is good, if you're happy with this, we do need a motion.
Yeah.
For this. And that would be, make sure you include, please, the amount you would like to pull from grant funds.
Well, I will move to approve the proposal as written, and I can't, no, I'm getting old, I can't even see how much that sums to. So what's the- $500, okay. I move that we approve the proposal as written with the $500 allocation for the event. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Byer, so we have a motion from the chair to approve the proposal as written with $500 taken from the big budget, and Commissioner Byer seconds. Is there any discussion? Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a natural extension of the grant, amount getting bigger and us getting more professional. I think we did a huge overhaul of the application, and it's just natural to extend the benefits of the project more widely. So I love World Cafe, and I love the idea of engaging the community in learning more about the great work that these folks have done.
And I'll comment too that I think it will then improve the proposals that you get in future years, because people who are attending will think, ooh, I could do that better. So you'll get some good stuff.
Do we want to leave the date?
Undecided for the moment, or
Do we want to commit to a
I
date?
don't
For
to a date.
So in your proposal, you said the second Tuesday of February from 5 to 7:30?
It will be here before we know it.
February of 2024.
It'll still be here before.
Have you checked that date for other potential
We just thought
stuff?
that it'd be nice to have a date in the grant application.
Yeah.
That was a consistent one that could stay every year,
Oh,
right?
very cool. February, what's the date again?
The second Thursday of February.
The 8th, okay. Don't put it on the 4th, that would be awkward. Since that's our meeting. Okay, I still think it'd be awesome if we could make like little plastic Alberts for them. I don't know, I mean, that's would up the budget, but Albert is so awesome. I think it'd be great to give them something material. There, just an idea.
I don't want to commit to anything, but I can probably arrange 3D printed Alberts.
No.
That'd be fun.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Okay, yeah, well, I guess that doesn't need to be in the grant, but remember that.
We-
Commissioner,
you know,
make a
what's-
note.
End of 2022 rolls around and we have a working group to actually execute the event, we could ask you about the
Yeah.
3D printed
Put that in the
Alberts.
minutes, 3D printed Alberts, oh, awesome, awesome.
Do we need a vote or someone to put together the blurb that will go on the application to let folks know that this is part of the expectations of them receiving and completing their project? And does that application open next month? Is that sort of very quickly approaching that we would want to make sure that this year's cycle knows about this commitment?
I could put it in there. I could also put it on the website. I believe we have a vague statement in there that says you'll participate in an event.
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I don't know if we needed
Yeah.
to change that or be any more specific, but
Is the application live already or is it?
It's not live.
Live
People
on
have been
Thursday.
visiting the website,
Yeah.
but I think that's a minor change that
Yeah.
shouldn't affect it too much.
Great.
All right, great, any other discussion? Okay, so I'd like to bring this to a vote. So we have a motion from the chair to approve the proposal for the recognition event with $500 from our budget on February 8th, 2024. And Commissioner Byer has seconded the motion. So Commissioner Daly, please unmute, and commissioners, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Oh, Molly's on there too. Okay. So.
Yep,
motion
still here.
Motion passes. Thanks so much, working group. Thanks so much for your work on that. It's awesome. So our next item is item D, which is our commission election nominations, and Marissa will lead us in that item.
Thank you, Chairman Kane. As stated in the agenda summary document, elections for chair and vice chair will be held in the September meeting. In the September meeting, those nominated may read a statement of intent, and then the commission may vote, and the elected chair and vice chair will begin their terms in January after a transitionary period. Commissioners may nominate themselves or someone else, and with that, I would like to open the floor for nominations.
I have a question. Didn't we just do this like 2 months ago or something? Or is my memory weird?
So we did have elections in February, but the commission also voted to do the elections every year in September, so that the new chair and vice chair would have that transitionary period.
Oh, I see. So this is sort of like the new policy taking place.
Exactly. Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I would nominate Commissioner Conkle for chair.
I cannot.
take my responsibility. I have too much at work, I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries.
I appreciate it.
I would be interested in running for chair.
I'd nominate Commissioner Daly for vice chair. If he is willing to accept.
Work is also a little crazy for me at the moment, so I might have to consider the nomination, but respectfully decline for now.
I would nominate Commissioner McCormick for vice chair.
That sound good, Molly?
No, actually, I again respectfully have to decline. Yeah, I'm able to show up in this capacity right now and still trying to figure it out. So thank you though.
Before things get worse, I'm gonna nominate.
And then maybe just to say that vice chair, I don't know, Kevin, do you want to speak to the time commitment maybe?
It's been less than I expected. It's actually pretty minimal, at least. I assume that would change if there was a catastrophe with the chair or something, but yeah, it's been very manageable.
For the minutes, Commissioner Byer, were you nominating Commissioner Steiger for chair or vice chair?
Vice chair, I'm sorry.
Is there a period of time to consider the nomination here and see if, I mean, I know what the votes would happen next month. Are you expected to? Are you expected to commit today is my question, I suppose.
If we get a second nomination, I would say I think you can think about it for a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would consider, I may also be starting a new role soon, and that would impact my ability as transitioning to that new role may take up some time as well. Although I do understand there is a transition period that the nomination would begin, or the appointment would begin in January. That's correct? It wouldn't begin right away?
Right.
That does help, certainly.
I'd be supportive of anybody. You're all really great. So if anyone wants to self-nominate.
We only have one person left.
I just feel like much too
Green.
green.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not okay, you know, it's not the sort of thing I would decline forever, but
It'd be like 6 months of meetings on your roles.
I mean, technically, there wasn't one more person. You could, if you're going to be on the commission next year, you could take a vice chair role.
I could, but I'd rather not.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I've been president way too long, so. Or chair, whatever. That means I have to give all those documents back that I've taken.
Oh, no.
That's a problem. Are we done, Marissa, or?
We can be, yeah. I think
Okay.
If you are not able to take the position, I may put it out to the commissioners in an email. And then if somebody else wishes to self-nominate for vice chair, you can email me privately.
About a week would be good to hear back about other opportunities that are coming up and get some expectations of what my new role could entail would be helpful, yeah.
Yeah, if you could just let me know one way or the other.
Sure, yeah, I absolutely can do that, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to both of you for considering stepping into those roles. Definitely, it's important for us to have leadership. Okay, so item E is the Neighborhood Sustainability Grant Update. Again, that's Marissa.
One moment, I would like to share my screen. All right. I'm not sure. Okay, and everybody online can see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to give you all an update on our current neighborhood sustainability grant cycle as we are entering it right now. Our current timeline, so on August 16th, we started advertising. Next week on September 1st, grant applications open. The first grant workshop is on September 1st. I'll have more information about that in a bit. And our second is on September 17th. And then on September 30th, grant applications will close. October 6th, I will be sending you all the application materials from our applicants, and you'll have until October 31st to get those scores back to me. November 3rd, I will take the questions you send me from your scores out to the applicants, and they'll have a week to get back to me, and I can give you those answers so that if that affects your score, you can change those scores. Then your final round of scoring for any adjustments will be due back to me on November 14th. And we will determine the recipients in the November 17th Sustainability Commission meeting. So updates, outreach has begun. We've posted flyers all around town. We set up an ad spot on Cap Country Radio. We started a social media campaign, submitted our press release today, so hopefully that'll be out soon. Sent targeted emails to previous applicants, recipients, and other organizations who might be interested, and we're really going to ask you guys to help us spread the word also. I sent you all the flyer earlier, but I will send it again today after tonight's meeting, and then if you follow us on social media, please share our posts as well. Water conservation update. So those of you who've been here a while, you remember we did the water conservation research grants. We did meet with water conservation in June just to kind of get a feel on if that process was working for them and how they saw it moving forward with their water conservation plan. Being that it changed so much from the neighborhood sustainability grants, they decided to take that back in-house so they could manage that with their water conservation plan. Albert Design funding, the climate team was really nice. They had some leftover funds from last year and they decided to pay for the Albert Design. So those funds will not be coming out of the 50,000 pot. So we'll have the full 50,000 pot to work with. And then I will be presenting to City Council on September 6th. I'm going to be presenting the fiscal year 2020-2021 completed projects. Who just gave their final reports. I'm going to be presenting on all of their projects. Feel free to tune in and watch the recording. We don't know when we're going to be on, but it'll be sometime after 3 on September 6th. And I will also be using the opportunity to ask council to help us spread the word. So those are our major updates. Go ahead.
Quick question. With the water conservation piece removed, do we need to update anything in the application?
So I
Is
just,
that all in there?
it was in a separate grant document, so I just pulled that off the website.
Great.
Right.
So just, I don't know, just one point of order. So for the grant workshops, I just wanted to put it out to the other commissioners. I've agreed to do the one on September 1st. The one on the 17th, I don't mind doing it. Oh, let me rephrase that. I can do that if nobody else wants to. But my normal workday ends at midnight, and a 10 a.m. program is a little bit early for my taste. So if anybody else would be okay with doing that, it would be nice for me.
Yeah, that's in person?
The 17th is in person.
Oh my
yes.
gosh, I'll do it. I'd like to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Makes my life easier.
Give me some tips, Commissioner White.
We've done this a couple times. One time, I guess.
Okay, so that actually brings me to my next slide. Thank you for that wonderful transition. So we are hosting 2 grant workshops this year after the great success of the one last year. I wanted to offer both the Zoom options and in-person options, just kind of based on the comfort levels of people, one during the week and one on the weekend. So September 1st, Commissioner Conkel and Vice Chair White both agreed to help me with that. I did also get volunteers of Commissioner Byer and Commissioner McCormick. I know you both are both new, but if you feel comfortable doing the one on September 17th. Additionally, Chairman Kane, we can have 3 of you there, so if you all feel comfortable being there, that's fine.
So I guess what would my role be?
Absolutely, yeah. So I will be sending presentations out a little closer to the date, but basically I have one slide for the commissioners during the actual presentation. You would just be presenting the evaluation criteria. And then we'll have the option during our breakout sessions to go through the grading of one of the previous applications. So I will have you grade one ahead of time and just kind of go through like why you graded it a certain way, just so they can kind of get a feel for what they're going to be evaluated on.
Oh, it's already on my tab, I volunteered. Okay, I'll be there.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think that would be a great way for both you and Molly, since you haven't, or Commissioner McCormick, since you haven't gone through the process to get a deeper understanding of it. So I think that's awesome.
It'll be interesting. There's actually going to be, there'll be a few things that'll be a lot different this year, which I have to keep in mind when I'm doing that.
Sure, and it's all written out and I'll send it to you ahead of time, so you'll have plenty of time to prepare. We are still collaborating with Beautification Arts and Sciences, who will also be presenting on their Beautification in Action grant. We covered all of you volunteering, thank you very much. And again, the presentation and materials are already prepared. I will send those out to you. Are there any questions on this update so far? Okay, great. Well, I'm not sure how much time I have left. Hopefully Chairman Kane will cut me off, but I did.
Yeah, we have a lot.
Perfect. I wanted to show you all our new Albert design and bring it up. I know Chairman Kane, you sent feedback in. If any of the rest of you have any initial feedback or want to email me feedback, please do. We would like to get this completed soon.
Figured it out. I was wondering what the little graphic was on the right, but it's a bike helmet.
It is, yes.
Just took me a second.
And this initial sketch, this is, you know, obviously
Yeah.
black and white grayscale, but the completed one would have some color in it.
It'll be in color, yes.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, so the bike helmet will be discernible with color. Yeah, I did the same thing. I was like, what is that?
My one thought is, with the 2 images in the background of homes, I don't know if this is a huge revision, but is there a chance that we could have a different type of dwelling that could be considered a home, since we do have some folks that live in apartments, more high density housing, just to be inclusive of folks that, if you don't live in a single family home, you're still included in this idea of a neighborhood?
Thank you.
I don't know exactly how you would convey that, but I think there's possibly a way to.
I think so.
City manager Clifton put in the chat that it looks like a jellyfish.
The bike helmet, yeah, I agree.
I know, do you mind if I share some of the feedback you sent in?
Sure, yeah.
So one of the big points was that all the little symbols are kind of hard to discern. And you suggested one symbol?
Yeah, for me, I think it'd be just more unifying and easier to get smaller, easier to see. And I told it I was on Canva, and I just, what is a symbol that means sustainability? So I offered a few, like a person, like a little hand with a plant, or a hand with a globe, just as one concise thing instead of, and for me, like the stethoscope and the umbrella, was confusing. I'm not sure. I know we have like a possibly public health as part of it, but.
Isn't it one for each of the categories?
Each of the focus areas of the grant.
Right.
Yeah.
I struggled a bit with resilience, so that's the umbrella. But yeah, so if there is like maybe another symbol, I like the idea of one symbol. If there are any ideas that come to mind on what one symbol could be to represent the grants.
I like one for each.
Yeah, I also like one for each, and just, I do absolutely recognize the utility of having just one representing image that we can sort of replicate, but I also like the idea that there's multiple options to just highlight and celebrate the fact that we can approach the, neighborhood sustainability and resilience in so many different ways. So perhaps if they may be easier to see once there's that color or higher contrast. I like the idea of having one for each so that you can represent all the different ways you can approach this.
So it's gonna be like a little, like two people hugging.
Okay.
The umbrella is, I see what you're going for, but it's hard to make that connection unless specifically told. I don't know, I don't know if that's a good one for resilience either, but I feel like community connection, you know?
Yeah, even like clasped hands or something too might get across that same feel of, connection.
Any other immediate feedback?
Well, I love the concept. I think it's really neat. I really appreciate the work to go into the basic concept. I think it's really cool.
Is that what Albert's face looks like on all of the Alberts? Okay.
Yeah.
I just couldn't picture another Albert in my head other than this one right now.
Now, Chair White, could you do that? Love it like a year. Maybe technology will improve so much that.
Great. Well, if any of you do have any feedback, feel free to let me know. I will be reaching out to the graphic designer probably on Monday, so please let me know this weekend if you think of anything else. But that was all I had.
Okay, thanks a lot, Marissa. So now we're moving to item F. Sonoma, thanks for being here. It's all yours. Staff update.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Sorry I came into the meeting a little later. Marissa, are you pulling? Thank you.
Yeah, just a second to switch PowerPoints. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm Sonoma Boynton. I am an AmeriCorps Environmental Literacy Corps member, serving as the Stream Stewards Coordinator, which is a partnership between the Friends of the Rio de Flag and the Office of Sustainability. And so as the Stream Stewards Coordinator this past summer, I've had the opportunity to work with everyone on the Rio de Flag and doing cleanups and trying to get people to sign up as Stream Stewards. So I'm super excited to be a part of this team and to be able to present to you guys today. If we can go to the next slide. So for some upcoming events, the Flagstaff Public Library and Sustainability Office are excited to launch the Flagstaff Climate Resiliency Project. So you can join us for our first event on September 13th at 6 p.m. and we'll be hosting a climate conversation on Flagstaff's climate vulnerabilities and impacts. And this will be a facilitated discussion, not a lecture. So super exciting to kind of have that more interactive side of things, to collaboratively learn and discuss community resilience. So we have had our postings for that going out onto social media and are super excited for that. Next slide. So for the community stewards and the stream stewards, our most recent activity was an event hosted by the stream stewards. This event was held on August 20th and it was at 10 a.m. And we saw a total of 30 participants. And so basically this is the walk through time event showing the past, present, and future of the Rio de Flag and the Flagstaff's connections to community following that process. And this walk ended up presenting an opportunity for participants to join in and share some experiences and history they might have in Flagstaff. And also getting to experience the Flagstaff area, going through the Francis Short Pond, up to Mars Hill, over to Thorpe Park, and back around to Wheeler Park. Next slide. So then we have the climate and energy team. So the Youth Climate Advisory Group is back. The 2022 to 2023 cohort that formed in March has resumed their biweekly meetings. So their first priorities include recruiting 1 to 4 new members to have a more diverse representation of the schools in Flagstaff, setting goals and outcomes for the 2022-2023 academic year, planning climate action events, campaigns, and projects in schools, and then the climate team staff are assisting with the facilitation for the regional plan visioning workshops on August 29th and 31st, so coming up here next week. And the climate team is closely involved in this current foundational stage of the regional plan developmental process. Next slide. Continuing with climate and energy team, the Flagstaff Sustainability Office is also proudly presenting the Sustainable Flag series. So in this new learning series, we are inviting community members to learn about the sustainability topics from community experts. All these classes are free and open to the public, which is excellent. This month, Mark Rivas from the City of Flagstaff Neighborhood Planners led a walking tour of the historic townsite neighborhood and talked about transportation, housing, equity, and historical building reuse. I got to attend that walk. It was excellent. Really cool to kind of see the development of the town. So we're excited to see this series continue. Next slide. And then as part of the climate youth leadership project, the Sustainability Office is looking to partner with local educators and organizations that would like to participate in youth climate action. So those interested in collaborating on efforts to empower the youth climate leadership and an educator who would like to support the climate action in the classroom, or a student who wants to help to achieve a more sustainable Flagstaff, have the opportunity to fill out the form, which the link is on this PowerPoint right there. Next slide. And then for food systems, we have the Flagstaff Sustainability Division applied for and was awarded the United States Department of Agriculture's Urban Agriculture and Innovation Production Grant for $184,085.12. The proposed initiative assessing and growing sustainable community food systems would support the development and comprehension of food system assessment, innovation for food business feasibility study, and food action plan. And then the City Council is scheduled to approve or deny the grant funding on Tuesday, September 6th. So not this next week, but the week after.
What would be the circumstances in which they would deny the funding?
You know, I am not.
So, yeah, so grants have to be approved by the council. So, you know, there is, I've never
city budget,
but they, in theory, could deny it if they wanted to. But yeah, they actually do have to accept the awards.
Gotcha.
So we never want to be presumptuous.
Yeah.
You know, when money's coming, they're usually pretty excited.
Pretty okay about that.
Yeah.
So very exciting for food systems. And then continuing with them, the sustainability staff have assisted with the organization of a pollinator planting event happening on Tuesday, August 30th, as well as the installation of a raised garden beds at the new Killiff Elementary School in accordance with the Flagstaff's Green Schoolyards initiative. And then they have a collaboration with the community partners such as Terror Birds, Coconino Cooperative Extension Office, and AZ Milkweeds for Monarchs have been influential for this work. So super exciting stuff happening, especially since Killiff is, you know, a whole new development. So that's very exciting. Next slide. And then we have the Isabel Street Community Garden was featured in the Coconino Master Gardener Association's Flagstaff Finest Vegetable Tour on Saturday, August 13th. This event is a fundraiser for microgrants to support the garden projects throughout northern Arizona, and over 200 people participated in the event and toured the gardens, and the gardens are really pretty right now. There's a lot growing, so they're really fun to look at. Next slide. And then we have materials management. So the residential food scraps drop-off program has officially diverted 20,000 pounds of compostable materials from the landfill since July of 2021. We expect exponentially to increase this number over the next few years with the addition of our 2 new drop-off locations at the Aquaplex and the Bow and Arrow Park. So super exciting to have those new locations. Next slide. And then we have Jenny. We have the new Rethink Waste website. Head over to our website to learn more about the waste diversion events and the Fix-It clinics, residential food scrap drop-off locations, and other fun waste diversion programming. The new website has received 438 unique visitors since its launching in July 25th. We are able to track this and other user information using an analytical features with Squarespace to help improve our communications with the public. And so then we have the link to the website on the slide. And they did a lot of great work on this website. Next slide. And that is all I have. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Sonoma. Any questions, commissioners? Okay, great. Thank you so much. So now we are on to item number 7, to and from, opportunity to share about community events and the announcements. Any to and from, commissioners? I have 2. Might be overlapping there with Commissioner Byers. So 1, library book sale, the library right over there. I'm on the board of the Friends of the Library, and we are having our annual sale on 5 consecutive Sundays, starting on 9/11 from 10 to 1. And the money goes to support the branches of our library, and those branches you might not know include one in Tuba City, one at the jail, and also at the Grand Canyon. So the money goes to expand the library services. And then secondly, there is a Friends of Flagstaff's Future, a local nonprofit, is holding a city council candidate forum. You might not know this, but we have 2 qualified candidates who got the requisite amount of signatures. We have 8. That's 8 write-in candidates that you need to write in their name, and they each need to get like 1,600 votes, or else we'll have spaces, and there's 4 positions coming open. So it's important that folks really know who these folks are and why we might want to vote for them. So the date of that is October 1st, Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And that's at Trinity Heights United Methodist Church, which is the top end of 4th, nestled against Mount Eldon. And I've already connected with Nicole, so Commissioner Bear and I are on the committee working on this. So it's going to be posted, so we don't have to worry about if all the commission comes. That'll be cool. So feel free to come to that, and it should be a really fun event. So those are mine. Do you have an additional one there, Commissioner?
Yeah, no, I guess just especially recognizing Sonoma being here as a member of the board of the Friends of the Rio de Flag. We were very instrumental in launching the Stream Steward program, and it's, I think, going to be very exciting. It'll be like, I say it's like the Foot Stewards, but 10 times harder, because you're not just picking up trash along the trail, you're picking up trash in a creek that has all sorts of vegetation growing in it. You are reporting to stormwater on obstacles that might cause floods. You are controlling invasive species, and you are going to the end of the city controlling the side range, which, like outside my house, is 50 feet about at this angle. You know, so it's real work. It's being launched. We're delighted to have Sonoma as the initial coordinator trying to launch this thing. I say one of the big obstacles, oh God, there's so many, one of the big obstacles is that the city only has access to about 1/3 of the stream reaches, because private property is private property, or in Arizona in the United States. But I think there will be ways to engage private property owners, but we're not really even starting on that yet. But that is one of my hopes, is that within the next year we're at least making some progress on that. But I think it'll be a very exciting effort, very ambitious one.
All right, great. Thank you, Commissioner. Go ahead, Commissioner Conoco.
Thanks, I do have one. I wish I could remember if it is on October 21st or 22nd, and I know that's a couple months out, but the Food Center is having a 30th year anniversary gala this year for a big fundraiser. So if you are so inclined to think about that for the next couple months, I don't know when tickets go on sale, but should be a nice event.
Great. All right, any others? Okay, so that's item 7. Item 8 is future agenda item requests. Commissioners, anything that you'd like to see on future agendas? Yes, Commissioner Bayer, go ahead.
So, I guess we started our meeting with an acknowledgement of the indigenous peoples on whose homelands this city exists, and I think it's very appropriate. City Council does that as well. The one piece of land that's probably most sacred to the indigenous peoples here is the San Francisco Peaks, which supports a ski resort for which the city provides reclaimed water for snowmaking. And there were some very disturbing stories. One in The Guardian, I just sent Marissa the links to these two articles so she can share it with you. One in The Guardian, a British newspaper. One August 7th here in the Daily Sun, which describes how the Forest Service negotiated with Snowball, allowed them to spend millions of dollars on upgrades that will require continued snowmaking to make snow at Snowball. And basically the tribes were shut out. They were not invited. And the forest supervisor who wanted to invite them was actually then removed from the process of the decision. So I'm not at all interested in trying to point fingers at any city staff. I don't even know if they were there. I would like to learn if they were there. And I would like some assurances that in all future discussions and decision-making regarding snowmaking on the peaks that involve the city, that the city insists that indigenous peoples are engaged. That doesn't mean they're going to get their way, but to shut them out of the room. I mean, again, these are just two stories. It's probably one side of the story, but it really made me very upset to think that a decision like this could be made and no, we do these little invocations at the beginning, and then what are we really doing? So I guess I would like us to maybe discuss that. Perhaps some city staff could find out if the city was even, I don't know if they were in the room, but if they were they, and were they concerned? And again, I want to look forward more, at least an assurance that if they were involved and didn't try to engage the tribes, that in the future there will be, and perhaps maybe invite some people who were in the room. I would just like to get more than the picture written by two people, both of whom I know and respect, but it doesn't mean no person knows everything. So maybe if we had somebody from the Forest Service who was part of that negotiation, or if somebody in the city was there, just educate me so I have a better comprehension, and we can move forward.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Meyer.
We're talking about future agenda. Yeah, I think I mentioned this last time with this a couple months ago. I would, at some point, I would like to have a conversation that would involve maybe also some people from the Forest Service and maybe some experts on forest ecology from NAU from a similar campus on potential effects in the burn scars from the last few years and how we might work to mitigate those. I'm concerned about topsoil loss, I'm concerned about desertification, and I'm concerned about implications for future watershed and future flooding and future climate in Flagstaff. I know that there's a lot of debate about should we try to preserve it as a ponderosa pine forest, or should we accept that it's going to move to a juniper pinyon forest or something like that. But I feel like that's still a conversation that we should have. If we decide that we want to revegetate, we can still revegetate, and we can still plant native junipers or pinions or whatever the precursor plants to planting those would be. But I do think that that's a conversation that needs to be had, because even though a lot of the burn scar isn't on Flagstaff city land, it does strongly affect Flagstaff. It does strongly affect a lot of aspects of Flagstaff's economy and life.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. White. I just want to let you know that is on our worksheet.
Okay.
Along with Commissioner Daly's request for more discussion about the bike lanes and the transportation tax and harmonizing Transportation and Sustainability Commission stuff. So we are tracking that. So don't think just because we didn't do it that we.
No, I haven't assumed. I just wanted to give another pick.
Totally. Yes. Thank you. All right. Any other future agenda item requests? right, so that brings us to item 9, which is adjournment. So we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Yeah, it's good to see you all.
Oh, is anybody going to the west side? Anyone?
Even from here right now?
Yeah.
What's going on the west side?
Okay,
He's right.
I was misinformed by Dave that the bus they take home was on a full schedule every half hour, and actually on an hour schedule, so no big deal though.
Well,
I can manage.
Where on the west side are you headed?
Boulder Point? I don't think we're going that way though, that kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
If you go out of your way, I can.
Drop you off, that's near where I'm heading.
At where?
I can drop you off, that's near where I'm heading.
I'm missing the last word, I'm sorry.
It's where I'm heading.
That's where you're heading, awesome.
That direction.
Oh, thanks, Sonoma, that'd be great, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks for the sticker.
Pardon?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Sonoma.
Right.
How are you?
Just need more water bottles too.
I know.
So-
I need a new bottle.
So great, we were talking about that.
Good to see you again.
Oh, yes, you too.
We met at the